What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Professional Athletes Financial Planning Journey video series. Changing it up a little bit as far as the format. Got my buddy Cayden McLaughlin on here. He's going to kind of help me out here, hopefully going forward. I think that would be really fun. But essentially, Cayden's a co-host on, one of our podcasts, Fresh Finance. We just got it started, and you guys will see that here probably mid-June. But we came across each other via LinkedIn. He's in Florida, I'm in Kansas. That's the power of, the LinkedIn community. And, he had a couple of questions as far as what this whole athlete, investing idea looks like. And so I wanted to have him on, ask a couple questions and, just see where it goes.
What's up, everyone? My name is Cayden McLaughlin. I'm a wealth advisor and tax practitioner with successful portfolios in Clearwater, Florida. Just kind of like Thomas said, I ended up LinkedIn, I don't know if your phone reads or listens to you or what, but I had mentioned once that I wanted to be like the youngest CFP out there. And then one day I got this notification for Thomas, and it was like his post, how he had just become a CFP and how his goal was to be the youngest CFP. And I added him, and then, I started seeing his sports posts like we're doing right now. And I had to call him, and I was just like, this is someone that I want to learn more from. This is someone that I want to ask questions to and kind of get his idea of his niche market. So definitely excited to be on here. And if it's all the same to you, Thomas, I think we should kind of go right into it. I'll start off with first question, if you're cool with that.
Yeah, fire away. Let's do it.
All right. So first question. When did you know that you wanted to focus on sports management or wealth management in terms of athletes?
Yeah. So always been an athlete, growing up, getting into high school, was a college baseball player.
Baseball.
Yeah. So that was kind of my main sport. And that's the main part of my practice from, a wealth management side of things. That's the only group that I'm working with right now is guys, in the major leagues, guys in the minor leagues, kind of representing the MLB. But I always noticed that, I probably wasn't going to be a pro baseball player. Obviously that's a dream. But the farther that I got into it, the more that I realized that I just, wasn't going to be able to crack it as a big leaguer. And so at the same time, I was developing a lot of really great relationships with really great baseball players that, I saw had the potential to become pro athletes. And, we started to develop some deep relationships, and I, kind of essentially mid-college was like, hey, I want to be a financial advisor. That's what I want to do. And then I had a really close friend who plays for the Braves. He ended up getting drafted in 2018, and he was my first client. It was kind of that best friend relationship that we wanted to take to the next level because he was a pro at what he was doing. And I was essentially becoming a pro in what I'm doing now. And we really just kind of wanted to synchronize that in a way where we can work together in a light that, most people don't get to do. I also just thought it's super cool, being able to kind of essentially give back to the community and the career that I had in baseball, and in sports in general. And it's just kind of snowballed from there.
So in terms of athletes, and I think you kind of answered this follow-up question with the baseball, but does it matter to you what kind of athlete that you're working with? Is it sort of is there a discrepancy in like, oh, I want to work with the MLB versus the NFL, or is it a discrepancy in terms of maybe major league to a college athlete who's about to get to that next level? Do you have any preference, or you like all athletes?
Yeah. So as far as the college level goes, there's a lot of stipulation on, amateur versus pro status. And so, there is some work that I've done with guys that are about to be drafted. And that's really, it's just general education. I'm not managing any of their money yet, essentially because
do they get paid at the college level?
No, not yet. There's a lot of info and a lot of legal situations that are hopefully allowing that to come to fruition soon, but not yet. But from a pro level, an organization standpoint, a sports standpoint, I don't really have any preference. MLB was just kind of the starting point for me because I was a college baseball player. That's where my connections were. But we've actually got a couple of, really exciting opportunities on the NFL side of things, and also on the NBA side of things as well. Because, what I've found is a lot of the practice building for, building out a network of athlete clients is word of mouth.
Yeah.
It's basically impossible to, reach out to a guy, text message first. You got to get their phone number, any sort of email. That's going to be tough. You can't just DM a guy on Instagram or Twitter and say, hey, you want to, work with me? Can I be your financial advisor?
I'd love to manage your money.
Yeah, that doesn't really work. And so that's kind of the main part of it. And so we kind of started with a base amount of guys, and word spreading a little bit, and, just kind of through the grapevines, running into a couple of different athletes. LinkedIn's also been a great place for me to kind of connect with guys that I normally couldn't connect with, and kind of get my message out there. So as far as discrepancies go, couldn't care less about which sport you're playing. I just want to, help in any way I can.
Now, all right, so you don't care about what type of athlete per se, or what sports. Could you name drop an athlete that you're managing right now? Or if you can, if that's an issue, what teams are you managing right now? Who's in your book, man?
Obviously can't name drop.
I figured.
But as far as just like teams, I mean, Chicago White Sox, that one comes to mind because actually they're playing the Royals here this weekend. So I've got a buddy that I'm gonna be seeing here this weekend. Atlanta Braves, those are just kind of two off the bat, teams like that. And I would say, right now, being a younger guy, the majority of my guys are in the minors. I do have one guy in the big leagues, which is incredible. It's really cool. And, the part that I really love outside of just the money management and, kind of that side of things is the relationship and getting to be a part of that athlete's journey. Because
you're a big part of their journey.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big sum of money that they come into, and they're traveling, they're on tour and stuff, and they have all sorts of other income coming in, and you're a very big part of their life.
Yeah. And it's just, having the opportunity to kind of be a fly on the wall in their journey to fame, really, and fulfilling their lifelong goals. I think that's, it's something that I'm starting to see a lot more of now. Now that, most of our guys are progressing and getting closer and closer to the big leagues if they're not already there. And, it's just really fun to see them grow as an athlete, but more importantly, to kind of see them grow, as an investor, as a person, starting to connect those dots, because there's nothing more exciting, in my opinion, than taking a young guy that sees the signing bonus as a great opportunity to buy the world, and then educating them in a way where they start to change that frame of mind and say, this signing bonus is a great way to set me up for life.
Yeah.
I think
absolutely.
There's a huge difference there. And being able to say, hey, we've got a time period here of normally no more than 10 years for most guys, some less, to really make some money and to really get it working for you in a way where you no longer have to work. And that's a tough thing, but being able to, get that athlete into that mindset, it's something else. It's incredibly gratifying for me.
Well, that's absolutely awesome, man. And it sounds like you're really starting to get some headway there.
Yeah.
All right. So you get these new athlete clients. What's the start process? Because these are individuals that just live a different lifestyle from you and I. These are people that don't walk the normal walk that we have to. And then they come into these large sum of money. So like, what's the first financial step with an athlete? What's the first big issue? What's the first catalyst in your relationship with them in terms of managing their money and being their advisor?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it kind of depends on the guy, on the athlete. The reason I say guy, I don't have any female athletes yet. I would love to. I've actually worked, considered and had some conversations with some professional women's soccer players as well. So just want to throw that out there. But it kind of depends on the guy, because you really got to dive into who they are and what their past looks like. Because, I've got clients that have come from nothing. And there's a unique approach to dealing with a client that's had, like a low income, past family history, which, is totally fine. I've also, I have some clients that come from very wealthy families, and their kind of IQ, their financial literacy is a little bit higher. And so it's just kind of taking them at what their past is, what their knowledge base is now, and progressing, because somebody that maybe didn't come from a lot of money in their past sees, $1 million check, and they think that there's no way that it could possibly run dry. And from my perspective, I could spend $1 million in a day. Shaq did, and he's talked about that publicly often. And so it's kind of getting them in the, in the mindset and understanding that this is a large sum of money. Hopefully, not all guys sign for big contracts, but for the most part, it's the most money these guys have ever seen, and figuring out a way to stretch that money out. And I think that the biggest thing is, firstly, de-stressing them. And that's kind of, something that not a lot of people think about, is when you walk into a sum of money like that is publicly acknowledged. So every baseball player, I'm not sure about the NFL, but every baseball player, their signing bonus, their salary, it's public information. So wherever you are, whoever your family members are, when you sign on that dotted line, everybody knows what you signed for. And that's actually really stressful.
I don't doubt it.
Because I mean, for anybody listening, anybody watching, think about the idea of your salary, your income being public information. Whether it's high, whether it's low, whether it's right in the middle. And whether you're transparent with your friends and family or not, that's still something that's kind of stressful. And there's just a lot of pressure on pro athletes to perform constantly. And so to kind of get them de-stressed, I think, is the first thing. And then moving into, some kind of basic money concepts, introducing, what account types can be really helpful for them. And honestly, just essentially preparing them to receive that windfall, because it's really just sudden wealth planning. It's like winning the lottery, really. And, just kind of getting them into that frame of mind where they're calm, they're comfortable, and they have a plan for when that money does hit. I think that's the key, is executing that plan before the money actually hits.
Now, and like you just sort of said, it's a case by case basis, right? And that's not exclusive to sports. Even, everyone has a case by case basis. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has experiences and financial, whatever it may be, that you have to kind of interpret and go when you're helping a client. But what kind of financial issues or things do you help with for athletes that's just specific to the sports side of it? Like what kind of financial situations does an athlete have to deal with that the common guy or the average investor just doesn't have the problem with?
Yeah. So firstly, it's reverse salary theory. And what that means is most people, as they get older, they continue to make more money. So you're going to start off, you're just out of college and you got that first job, you're salaried, and you slowly grow, you slowly make more income, and then you retire at 65. That's kind of the general trajectory. But with an athlete, it's the complete opposite. Normally they sign for a large bonus, and then they've got about anywhere from 3 to 10 years at the big league level of their sport, and they're making more money than they most likely ever will for the rest of their life. Okay. So you're kind of tracking everything in the opposite direction. And so I think that's the big thing, is you're seeing your highest levels of income really fast, and then it goes away almost faster. And so being able to plan for that is key. I think the second thing is from a tax perspective. Now, there are some self-employed people that run into this situation, but with professional athletes, they pay income taxes in every state that they play in, whether that's 1 game or 20 games. They pay income tax in every state that they play in. So if you think about Major League Baseball players, that's the longest season in sports, and normally they travel the most. So you think
that's
about
very complex. I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
You have to pay tax in every state that you play in.
Exactly.
their accountants must absolutely hate them.
Yeah. And so most agencies, so sports agencies, the agents for these players, they have in-house tax teams. I know some that don't. And we have a tax team that we work with. And you think about a major league player, they're going to be playing, what is that, 81 games in their home state. And depending on what state that is, if that's California, have fun with that. And then you're probably going to be playing in, just off the top of my head, thinking about our last season, even though it was cut short because of COVID, we had guys filing in 10 to 12 states.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of planning that goes onto that because it eats into what you're actually taking in.
Now, I would think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, sports is a little bit outside of my domain, but as we've talked about on Fresh Finance podcast before, kind of that time value of money concept, $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow because that dollar today can be invested in stocks, right? It can earn interest over time. So what did you just say? It was the reverse theory of salary?
Reverse salary theory. Yeah.
Reverse salary theory. A little financial planner in me almost thinks that if you can walk that athlete through sort of the mindset of, hey, we have this large sum of money, but if we can not blow it on a car and all that stuff, if we can invest this today, the opportunities are endless moving forward when we can capitalize on that time value of money concept. It almost seems like it would work to an advantage to some degree. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I'd say you're totally right. And that's one of the first things that we will do with an athlete, especially once the contract is signed. Beforehand, we'll do some kind of, basic math, and when we get really close to the draft, if we're working with a college guy, we can kind of take a look at what they're predicted to sign for. Obviously, it's a complete mystery when it actually happens. And very rarely do they actually get that exact amount. But what we'll do is we'll take like a round number that they're probably close to getting. And then we'll run it through some financial planning software and say, hey, if we take this much, we put it into an investment account or a couple, and we earn this return, this is what it's going to look like at 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, down the line. That's what the time value of money will do for it. And I know Fresh Finance, we talked about rule of 72. Just quick dive into that. Super common finance and investing term. Take the number 72 and divide it by the percentage annual return you're probably going to get. And that's going to tell you how many years it's going to take to double your portfolio money. And so essentially we'll look at that as well. Because if you think about it, most people try to have $1 million by the time they get to 65 so that they can cover what would ultimately lead out to be about 30 years of lifestyle expenses. The average age of retirement for an MLB guy is 30.
Really?
And so think about that much more time. Instead of 30 years that you're planning for, it's 70.
Okay.
And so that's where the time value of money really comes into play, and why we really try to stress not spending too much of your bonus.
Right.
Because first off, you're either 18 or you're somewhere in between 21 to 23. You don't need too much.
Right. You don't. Your expenses are low at that point. And
exactly. And most of these guys, it's funny because they're either in season and they're so busy they have no time to do anything, or they're out of season, in the off season, and they're resting, or they're training and they have no time. And so, I've heard stories of guys buying multiple houses, buying multiple cars, and that's cool. And, and it looks cool on Instagram, but at the same time, it's like, when are you going to have the time to actually use those things? And, instead of doing that, get your money working for you, have one car, have a place that you're living in that's decent, and, let that money grow for you. So when you are retired, you've got that nest egg prepared, and, you can buy those things that you want, and you'll actually be able to use them to the fullest extent that you can.
Now, it's kind of down this similar path here, and I know it sounds like the same question, but it's really not. Um, it's a very unique situation, like you said. It's kind of like winning the lottery. So,
Yeah.
it, is there any advice that you give to an athlete that's just different from what you would give to any other persona, a risky investor, a business owner, a lawyer, so on and so forth down the pipeline? What like is there anything specific that you would do differently for them just because of their scenario, the context of it,
Yeah.
that very unique reverse salary theory, like you said? Is there anything that you do different?
Yeah, I think one of the first thing that comes to mind, and not a lot of people know this, but every professional sports league has a 401k plan that is better than anything that is out there. So once you make it to the big leagues of whatever sport that you're playing, and you do I always stress athletes to make a full 401k contribution, the full 19,500, because your team will match the entire thing.
What?
Dollar
I've never
for
heard
dollar.
of that. I've never
Dollar
heard
for
of
dollar
that.
up to the max.
Tell me about that.
It's crazy because sports has seen such a bad light in financial literacy. And so teams are really trying to find ways to encourage athletes to contribute to 401ks and retirement plans. And so what they do is they'll do a dollar per dollar match up to the max.
Wow.
And so what I tell athletes is you want to double your money instantaneously, do a full max contribution to your 401k, and there it is. Automatic 100% return. And it's not even investment related.
Now, just because when you're doing the asset allocation and you're doing the portfolio construction for clients, right? There's a very rigorous set of rules that we like to follow. We start with that asset allocation. We go in, we look at asset location, we set that goal plan, and we do all of these things, right?
Yeah.
And then, there's a little bit of stock picking, but that's just a small portion of it. It's not the whole thing that we do. Now, when you're doing that stock picking, it's kind of an unwritten rule. You go with what your client likes. You go with things that they feel good about psychologically. And so do you kind of weigh a little bit more heavily into sports related stocks, like maybe DraftKings or something for these investors? Is there like maybe, I don't even know, is there a restriction on DraftKings, or just similar sort of asset allocation strategy once you get down to that step?
Yeah. So as far as restrictions on DraftKings, I don't have any clients in DraftKings. We actually don't do any stock portfolios for athletes. And, I can explain that here in a bit, but to own the stock, no, normally not a restriction. To actually participate in DraftKings, heavily restricted. Pro athletes are not allowed to do fantasy drafts. Pro athletes are not allowed to participate in DraftKings, even if it's not in their sports. Yeah. Yeah. So that's definitely something to think about. But, when it comes to asset allocation for us, we like to, educate clients in a way where we're kind of using a team analogy for a portfolio. So, for kind of stock baseball conversation, with an athlete, every day when you're playing baseball, you got 9 guys on the field: catcher, pitcher, infielders, outfielders. And the way that we like to explain how we set up our mutual fund portfolios is just like that. We call it an all-star team of mutual funds, where, we talked about this in Fresh Finance, but our kind of example to get them to relate and understand the mindset of putting together a good portfolio is we want to find the funds that are best at their position. We want that all-star lineup of mutual funds. And so what we're going to do is help kind of use this analogy to explain what we're doing with their money. Because everybody wants to be an all-star. Everybody wants to have an all-star team. And so why can't there be something like that for investments? And so, what we kind of talk about is, every position is going to have a different kind of player. And every player is going to be good at certain things in order to contribute to the team as a whole so that they can win. There's a reason why there's a ton of pitchers in every, Major League Baseball team. It's because they want different styles of pitching. They want right-handers. They want left-handers. They want guys throwing from the side, guys throwing submarine. They want guys that are throwing fast, They want guys that are throwing kind of soft, and they want to essentially create that what is really sports diversification from an investing mindset. And so that allows the players and the athletes to understand, the investing concept a lot better. Does that kind of make sense, off the bat as far as, how we explain that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, you covered that pretty well.
And, I've had a couple of conversations with NFL guys, and, we do it the exact same way as, and kind of another analogy is we want offense and defense. They always say defense wins championships. That's the same thing with investments is, it's great if you've got a good offense and you're in the green when the market's up, but it's really important when the market's down. You want that defense, that defensive side of your portfolio to be working really hard for you. And,
absolutely.
From the NBA side, quick analogy is, from a defensive perspective, are we running a zone? Are we running a man on man kind of defensive strategy? And then obviously, you don't necessarily want to have 5 guards on the floor at all times. You want to have a center. You want to have that shooting guard. You want to have a point guard. You want a guy that's going to facilitate in order to contribute to the team, keep the team that you're facing on their toes. PGA, it's just the clubs. You don't have 14 drivers in your bag.
Right.
You got to have a putter. You got to have a couple of wedges. You need some irons, and you need some woods to hit the long stuff that's on the fairway. That's going to help you contribute to being a great golfer. And, having a diverse lineup of mutual funds is going to help you contribute to be a great investor.
So my last question for you here is just more of a personal one.
Yeah.
Who's the dream client, man? Who's like the one athlete that you're just like, wow, like I'm going to manage your money one day. I want to do it.
That's a great question.
I know there's a lot, right? We all have a lot. There's a couple different ways to break that down, but like, who's the one, man? Who's the one?
I'm going to give you a really funny answer here. Because everybody, somebody gets asked this question, is like, even if you're not in the financial advising industry, it's like, if you could manage somebody's money, you're going to get your Mike Trouts, your LeBron Jameses, all those guys with a ton of money. But the guy that I would want to manage the most, he's actually retired.
Okay.
Shaq.
Really?
Because that guy has been so transparent his entire career about the growth and the education that he's gotten in his financial situation. Obviously, like I said earlier, started off, first day, even before he signed his contract, spent $1 million in one day. And that next day said, I need to hire a financial advisor. And he made a great deal of money in his career. And now he's retired, and that guy's in every commercial you'll ever watch.
I was going to say, he's like a serial entrepreneur.
Exactly. And, he's really started to, I think he went back out his MBA, and he's just been awesome. And from my perspective, I love guys that are always searching for endorsement deals, because what that allows me to do is I can set up that S corporation for you, and we can help set those endorsements up in a way where when you're getting that
non-taxable distribution of income,
exactly, baby. Exactly. And if you want to learn more about that, give me a call. But he just presents so many fronts of income, and I wish athletes would pay attention to him, because I see a lot of people bagging him. People saying, "Oh, Shaq's like, it's like he needs money," and it's like, no, he doesn't need money, but he knows that if he keeps doing this, he's going to set his kids up, that generational wealth transfer. And it's just the idea of just being a grinder, and finding fun ways to make income, and not, settling for the nest egg that he built in the NBA. And that's the guy that I would love to work with for sure.
So would you say that he's like, I mean, it sounds like you are, would you say that he's kind of almost a role model for other athletes in the industry in terms of finance and building your wealth and diversifying your income into other sources? You'd say he's a role model?
I think so. Yeah. He's been super charitable too, which I think is a huge part of being an athlete, is, giving your time and, a little bit of your money to, the people that you want to represent and you want to give back to. But yeah, I think he's a great role model for sure. And, I think that people should definitely take a look at his story, coming from a family that maybe didn't have very much money, and he came into a bunch. He made his mistakes, but the most important part is he learned. And he learned from people like me.
That's really awesome.
Yep.
Really awesome.
Yep. So you got anything else?
I do not have anything else for you. You answered all of my questions.
Perfect. And hey, if anybody sees this and, has just a random question, whether you're an athlete or not, I'd love to have you drop a comment below, and we can, we can definitely have those headlined for our next episode, and we can just keep going from there.
Awesome, Thomas. I appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to doing it again, and we'll see what questions we have next week.
Yeah. Thanks, Cayden. Thanks, guys.